Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County, welcome to the primary election candidate forum with candidates running for Legislative District 26, Position 1. My name is Liz Knox, and I will be the moderator tonight. Also with me is Terry Baker, who will be the timekeeper, and Chloe Wilhelm, our Zoom master. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. Our mission is defending democracy and empowering voters. We hold candidate forums as a service to the public to provide voters with an opportunity to compare and contrast candidates before casting their votes. The League also influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League is open to any person age 16 and older who subscribes to the purpose and policies of the League and includes men as well as women. Before I begin the opening statements and questions, I would like to give the land acknowledgement and then explain the format. The League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County wishes to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, surrounded by their traditional waters in the shadow of Mount Tahoma. We actively seek inclusive and respectful partnerships that honor Indigenous cultures, histories, identities, and current realities. Once again, this forum is for primary election on August 4th, and candidates with us tonight in ballot order are David Olson, Natalie Bornfleth, and Adison Richards. Before we begin, the candidates have been given ground rules in advance, which include, among other provisions, that they will adhere to the rules of common courtesy and will not comment on the other candidates, but will focus on the issues, and that there will be no additional recordings made of this forum. Could I ask that each of you, candidates, please confirm that you agree to these rules with a nod or a thumbs up? Okay, looks like everybody agrees. So if you are in the audience and have questions for the candidates, you may text them to this number, 425-765-5388. Again, that number is 425-765-5388. Questions must be directed to all candidates and may be consolidated or reworded. Candidates will be timed and will receive verbal cues when they have 30 seconds remaining and when they must stop. They may finish short sentences once the timer stops, but may not continue to speak after that. All candidates will be asked the same questions and have the same amount of time to answer. Please be sure to mute yourself when it is not your turn to speak, and remain on gallery view so that you can see the timer. Let's begin. The candidates for Legislative District 26, Position 1, again, are in ballot order David Olson, Natalie Bornfleth, and Adison Richards. Each candidate will give an opening statement of up to 2 minutes. At the end, the candidates will give closing statements of up to 1 minute. Opening statements, here we are, and we'll go in ballot order for this. So David Olson, would you please give your opening statement?
Yes, thank you for allowing me to be on this panel tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity. My name is David Olson. I'm a retired Navy officer. I served 28 years in the Navy. I was a Navy diver, underwater welder, and electrician. So I'm a strong supporter of the trades and the shipyard here locally. I've served on the Peninsula School District School Board for the past 13 years. I'm very proud of the work we've done. We've focused on literacy, writing, and math. We have an outstanding JROTC program, Aviation Academy, among other wonderful things. Our school district is ranked in the top 10% in the state, recently receiving an award from OSPI recognizing that achievement. I also served as a Pierce County Charter Review Commissioner in 2016 to help review the Pierce County Charter. I was proud of the work that I did on that as well. I'm running for state representative because I think Olympia has lost focus. I think that the state majority has continued to raise taxes year over year, but their spending has been out of control as well. Just over 10 years ago, our state budget was $33 billion. Now we're at $80 billion. So our budget has just gone out of control. Affordability is really hurting families and small businesses. Public education has been really, impacted by the lack of public funds from the state, which is their constitutional duty, public homelessness, affordability, uh, small business issues are all a serious concern for me, as well as ferries. When I talk to people in the local community, they're worried about transportation, about ferries, about their families, and so forth. And that's why I'm running. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Natalie Bornfleth.
Hi, thank you for being here. And I'm Natalie Bornfleth. I'm running for state representative because I believe South Kitsap deserves leadership that's focused on people, outcomes, and accountability. I was raised here in the 26th. I'm a mom, a public school teacher, an Air Force veteran, a former shipyard worker, and a union leader. I've worked in classrooms, in uniform, and at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. So I know what it means when families are doing everything right and are still feeling squeezed by the cost of groceries, gas, housing, healthcare, and childcare. I'm running because I believe we can do better. We need to fully fund public schools. We need more affordable housing, stronger infrastructure, good union jobs, and a budget that actually reflects the needs of working people. I also believe taxpayers deserve results they can see and trust. Public dollars should go toward public good, not waste, loopholes, and programs that do not deliver. This campaign is about making life more affordable, protecting the place we love, and making sure families in South Kitsap and Pierce are not left behind. I'm endorsed by Washington State Labor Council, WEA, WFSE, nurses, and National Women's Political Caucus of Washington.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Adison Richards. Your opening statement, please.
Well, thank you very much to the League of Women Voters and to everybody who's tuning in tonight. I'm Adison Richards, and for the past 2 years, I've had the privilege of representing the place that I grew up. I went to Peninsula High School. My mom's an educator in the Peninsula School District. I grew up working for my dad's small business, and then I have served in legal aid capacities with families struggling to make ends meet, victims of crime like domestic violence and human trafficking, as well as folks that are facing housing crises. And so the challenges of affordability, public safety, like those, in the infrastructure needs around here are not just abstract ideas to me, but there are tangible things that I have seen up close, and I want to continue to work on. And I'm here tonight to ask you to allow me to continue the work. In 2 years of being your representative, 7 of the bills that I sponsored became law, including bills that matter a lot to our region, like work on derelict vessels and stopping folks from taking advantage of grieving families in the probate process, as happened in Kitsap County. We also invested in transportation needs across the district, the first public transit on the Key Peninsula in over a decade. And in our ferries and keeping Kitsap Transit funded, while we also got boats back on the water for the Bremerton and Southworth runs, and we kept the bridge tolls from going up, which was an accomplishment as we saw tolls go up all across the state except for right here, and that's because we need a representative who'll go to bat for you, and that's what I did. And then on housing, we have so many needs across our state. I've done a lot of work over the past few years to make sure that we're building the supply that we need in places that make the most sense, specifically in large cities across the I-5 corridor, to ease some of the burden on the need for further development out here. We've got to be really strategic about where we're building here to meet the housing challenges. And do so much more across the board on affordability, gas, groceries. I voted against the gas tax increase, and I'm looking forward to going back to work for you. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to the questions. For most questions, each candidate has 90 seconds to respond, although I may choose to announce a slightly longer or shorter time. The candidate speaking first on each question will rotate. Since David Olson gave the first opening statement, we will begin with Natalie Bornfleth. For question 1, here's the first question. What are your budget priorities for LD 26? Why? How would you fund them? And will they require reduced spending in other areas? Go ahead, Natalie.
My 3 budget priorities are fully funding our schools and lowering the costs of healthcare and childcare, so making life more affordable, and then making infrastructure that works for us as commuters here in the 26th. The way I plan on funding those isn't by cutting more programs that are built to work and are working to help the lower middle class and the families who need it most, but to have more progressive revenue. So I believe in maintaining and passing, I believed in the passing of the millionaire's tax. And I think that we need more progressive revenue, such as the estate tax. And that's my plan.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Adison Richards, the same question.
Yeah, so we need to get back to our core priorities: education, healthcare, safety. On education, our public schools are in need of serious help on the budget side. We've got a massive capital budget needs across our school districts. The Peninsula school districts haven't been updated. The high schools there haven't been updated for years, along with in South Kitsap. And then we have our challenges in Bremerton as well on the capital side with the need for our school buildings. But we also need to make sure that we're investing in our students, and really from pre-K all the way up through career tech education. And that's why I was proud to sponsor things like the pre-K Promise account, and then also work on funding and help to secure funding for West Sound Tech. When we came into session, my first year, there was no money allocated at all to complete the last half of the West Sound Tech project, but we worked together and got that done. And so that school is up and running, helping kids get into career tech opportunities across our region. And then on the healthcare side, right, we've lost a pediatric unit up at St. Michael's. And we've got to make sure that we're investing in Medicaid reimbursement rates and other things that are going to help keep independent practices open and help keep units like that open. And then additionally, we've got so many other infrastructure needs around here: the Purdy Bridge, Fox Island, Gorst, you name it. And I'm going to continue to work on issues like that as well.
Thank you. And now David Olson, same question.
Thank you. I think, the affordability is one of the top things we need to work on. And one of the key drivers of that is housing availability. One of the things I like to do is review the Growth Management Act, possibly overhaul the GMA to allow counties and cities to potentially expand the urban growth areas so that they have more buildable lands. To do that with thoughtfulness, to make sure it's done fairly. We also need to improve our permitting processes and regulations that we put on our builders and contractors that do that kind of work. As a longtime school board member, one of the things that the state really has caused angst with us, as well as cities and counties, is so many unfunded mandates. The state, tells you how to do, you have to do this, but then they don't give you the financial resources to do it. What that causes is that local communities have to increase their taxes to afford that kind of stuff. I think we fully need to agree with Natalie. I've been a long advocate of overhauling the prototypical school funding model to fully fund public education. I do not believe we should be cutting programs like Running Start and transitional kindergarten. I think those are unwise decisions. I think we really need to do an audit of all of our critical programs and make sure that we're spending our money wisely. And if not, figure out why not, and let's stop doing that.
Thank you. And David, we're going to start with you also for the next question, which is, while you would represent LD 26 if elected, you would participate in making decisions that impact the entire state. Describe one of the most important issues facing Washington state as a whole in the next year and explain how you would address that issue.
Well, I think I'm going to say there's two that I really think are really critical. And I think one of them is housing affordability. We need to be able to have an opportunity to give people the opportunity to live where they work. A lot of people commute an hour or 2 hours to work because they just can't afford to live in their local community. And I think we need to make housing, increase our housing opportunities, whether it's with ADUs, townhomes, small homes, whatever it might be. I think we need to really work on expanding housing availability across the state, especially in some of our more rural areas that it's really pricing people out of their opportunity to own a home. And the other I've already touched on is public education. Over the past 10 years or so, We've gone from one of the top 10 states in the nation, public education, to now in the lower 40s. We're just going in the wrong direction. We're not preparing our students for life after high school, whether it be the military or the trades or a college, whatever it might be. I think we really need to meet our constitutional duty, which says the state needs to fully fund or amply fund public education. Over 10 years ago, we spent over 50% of our budget on public ed. Now we're in the low 40s, and that is just not the way, in my opinion, that we should be setting up our schools, whether it be our teachers or our students, for success. Thank you.
Thank you. Adison Richards, same question.
I appreciate the question. And the number one issue that I hear about across the board in the thousands of doors that I've done is affordability. And, that comes down to everything from housing to healthcare, childcare, groceries, gas, you name it, right? So there's a huge number of items in that list. And to me, the solutions to a lot of those problems are not rocket science. We have a supply demand problem across the board. When you look at the cost of groceries, what we need to do is help our farmers and local food producers stay operating, to continue to produce the food that we need here locally in our state. We're losing 2 farms a day. I serve on the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. This is a big priority for me, because if we're bringing in food from elsewhere, that's increased transportation costs. Another thing that I was able to help do was reverse a sales tax increase that impacted agriculture planes and was going to increase the cost of groceries as well. But then on the childcare side, we need to have more childcare options for more of our families. We also, on the healthcare side, like I was mentioning earlier, need to have more healthcare providers and keep our independent practices alive. And then we've got, high gas taxes in our state. Again, I voted against the gas tax increase. We can't look to just raising new taxes to solve every budgetary problem. We've got to be accountable. We've got to make sure that we're delivering outcomes that people expect, and not just passing broad sweeping regulatory policy that increases costs. Thanks.
Thank you. And now Natalie Bornfleth, same question.
Yeah, I agree with Representative Richards that our number one issue facing the entire state is affordability. I spent a good amount of time in Spokane recently, and then about 5 years of my childhood was spent in Eastern Washington. So it's got a big chunk of my heart and my thoughts. So I think that we need to focus on this by not increasing property taxes and not increasing sales and gas tax. We need to lower those things. And the only feasible way we can do that is to try and balance our tax code as it is right now. The lower class people are paying the most. And we keep hearing that. And it's still true that the wealthiest in our state are not paying their fair share. Corporations keep getting tax benefits. So the Democrats of this last session, they voted to cut education by $250 million. And in order to pass the millionaires tax, they got rid of the estate tax, which was a $500 million tax break for the wealthiest. And I don't think that that's the best way that we can do business. It's not the way to make things more affordable. I think the millionaire's tax is a great stepping stone, but it's not perfect. It is the first way. Like, our constituents are for sure going to benefit from the extension of the working families tax credit. I think my time is up.
Thank you. Your time's up. Yeah. Okay, moving on to question 3. As Washington's summers become hotter and drier, what suggestions do you have to help Washingtonians address the threat of wildfires and smoke? And for this one, we'll start with Adison Richards.
Well, this is another one of the biggest issues that our state is facing, right? And we're seeing the massive fires across our state already, especially on the east side of the mountains right now. I know one of the fires claimed the life of a firefighter, and the impact of wildfire is not only in the immediate sense the threat to people's homes and livelihoods. It's also downstream, and it has an impact on utility costs and on insurance rates and all kinds of different issues. So what I'm working on as well in the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee is addressing our wildfire mitigation strategy in order to help address all of these different issues related to the risk of wildfire. We were able to secure the funds necessary to provide the mitigation fund with what it needed this past session. But yeah, we've got significant work to do on that front. And related to that is water and the fact that we have drought conditions, right? Our snowpack was super low this year. Climate change is going to continue to make a big impact on our region, and we've got to come up with a new long term solution for addressing the water needs that we're going to have as cities like Port Orchard, our third fastest city in the state, is going to need more water to meet its growth management targets. And so we've got and then all of the water that's flowing through the dams, it impacts utility costs. So we've got more work to do across the board. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Natalie Bornfleth, same question.
Yeah, this affects me personally. We were on a vacation when my son was little, and he ended up having health issues because of the smoke that we couldn't avoid. And that's what's happening to lots of families. And everything that Representative Richards said, I want to expand on. So one of the things I think we need to look harder at is partnering with our indigenous tribes. They have ancient knowledge since time immemorial about how to best do land management and forest management. And we don't listen to them enough. I know that they are working on controlled burns of the underbrush, and we need to continue to work on those and make sure that the funding is available. We need to make sure that emergency funds are available because these fires are not going to stop happening, but also we need to work on who is taking up the most water. And a lot of it is corporations, and what are they doing to mitigate their use and to be taxed for their use. I think that there are other solutions to cooling data centers than just water, and they know it. And those need to be required, not just suggested by our state.
Thank you. And now David Olson.
It's always tough to go third because you hear the other two folks talk and you're like, well, I agree with him and I agree with her. So I'm going to have to agree with a lot of what they said. Infrastructure, across our state is aging. We're trying to bring energy across the Cascades or across the mountains from one side to the other to meet some of the requirements of the Climate Commitment Act. Some of the power lines that we have coming across the mountains are really, really old. I think that, and oftentimes those could spark or malfunction, and then those go down into the dry grass or forestry and spark wildfires. And I think we need to do a more thorough job on how we're going to improve our aging infrastructure. And that's one thing I would want to look at. Forest management is always an important issue. We see that in California all the time they don't want to do the forest management. They don't want to do clear cutting, or they don't want to do controlled burns. And my daughter and oldest son live in Central Washington. When I go over to visit and you smell all the smoke and you drive around and see all the thousands of acres of burned land, it's really, really sad. And so I think we need to, those would be my clear things. Obviously water's an issue, but I think focus on infrastructure, proper forest management, including clear cutting and controlled burns. And I'll learn more about this when I'm elected.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's an audience reminder right now. If you have a question, you can text it to this number, 425-765-5388. We will try to get to all appropriate questions. And our next question is number 4. We'll begin with Natalie Bornfleth for this one. What do you see as the most critical issues facing the marine environment of LD 26, and how would you address that issue?
Yeah, Representative Richards started this with the abandoned boats that are left in our marina. But we have a lot of work to do with the shipyard, my former employer, and working with the Navy as they bring in more programs is great because there's more jobs. We need to make sure that they have the best budget, right, in the entire nation, so they can afford to pay their fair share of the cleanup and the mitigation of anything going into our Sinclair Inlet. And we have to protect our salmon. I am a fourth grade teacher and I teach salmon in the classroom. It's something that is really important to me, but it's also important to our local orca pods. And it's one of the things that's hurting them the most. So making sure that our sound stays clean and that our salmon have the paths they need to get to their spawning grounds and back to and out to the ocean. So that's my miss.
Thank you. And now David Olson.
Thank you. I think one of the things that, in my 21 plus years of living here that I've heard about is, we have a lot of ag, water ag, if you want to call it that, whether it be gooey ducks or mussels or whatever they're doing, you need to make sure that they're properly managing those beach properties where they're doing that aquatic agriculture, make sure they're not do anything egregious to erode the beaches or possibly poison the area. One of the things that I'm on the Greater Gig Harbor Foundation, and one of the things we have is a thing called EnviroCorps, where we have volunteers that walk the beaches and remove waste. They remove creosote poles, things like that that can create a lot of problems for beach environments in the water. I agree also as a former Navy person that you always want to be monitoring what's flowing out of a naval vessel or a ship. You don't want to be pumping bilges into the sound. That would be awful. You want to make sure that they're using their proper barriers when they're doing that kind of thing. I just think that across the LD 26 over the years, I see that they're making a lot of improvements in the salmon runs, breaking in across the Purdy Spit and some other places, improving the water access so that those salmons have a proper opportunity to get up to their native spawning grounds. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Adison Richards.
Well, the biggest issue facing our marine environment is the warming of the water quality with the ocean acidification in particular. There's so many different layers to this, and it has massive economic impacts. And again, like on the agriculture committee, people look at me like, "Do you have any farms in your district?" And I get to tell them, "Yes, I do. We have family farms, especially shellfish farms." And then I also worked at Anthony's while I was in law school on the weekends. And this is a massively important issue for our entire region, and we've got to keep our salmon runs going. We are very familiar with the culvert work, especially if you've lived up in the Bremerton in Port Orchard area and have had to deal with the traffic over the past few weeks. But look, we've got chemicals in the water like 6-PPD that we need to find a long-term solution for. We've got other chemicals in the water, and I've spoken with constituents who have different filtration system ideas, and so I've got more follow-up to do, more follow-up work to do on that front. But we've got to work together, I think, too, across our entire region. There's a whole conference called PNWAR, the Pacific Northwest Economic Region, includes our partners in Canada and all other, and then states here, Oregon and Montana, elsewhere. We've got in California. We got to work with them to come up with more regional solutions to help address the real problems of a warming body of water.
Thank you. And the next question. In gathering questions for this forum, several residents mentioned that traffic congestion, road and bridge upkeep or replacement, for example, in Fox Island, and narrow road safety are concerns in many areas in the 26th district. As a legislator, what would you do to address these issues? And we'll begin with David Olson.
Well, thank you. That's been certainly quite a challenge here. I know the Fox Island Bridge, they've been trying to solve this problem for quite some time. Often they think they have a solution and that the cost is too prohibitive, and then they try to determine who's going to pay for it, whether it's the residents or it's the state or where it's Pierce County. I think the state needs to really lean in on their capital budget to see how they can identify some of these bridges that are most vulnerable. The Purdy Bridge is really a nightmare at sometimes during the day. You drive across it and you have an 18-wheeler or you have a large truck coming over there, maybe not an 18-wheeler, but a large vehicle coming the other direction, and you're always worried about, are you going to swipe your mirror? I know they've been talking about replacing the Purdy Bridge and the nightmare that would cost to do that. I think it needs to be done thoughtfully. I know they're working to put roundabouts and to improve traffic flow in that direction. I know Highway 16, they're gradually working on widening that, which will improve that traffic flow over the years. I'm really proud of the work that the state is doing on Highway 16. I do think that they need to do a partnership with that, in my opinion, between the counties and the state to identify the best funding models for that. We got to stop moving money from a transportation budget to the general fund. We need to leave the funds in there and use it for what it was intended to do.
Thank you. And now, Adison Richards, same question.
Yeah, so I serve on the transportation committee, and I also serve on the housing committee, and these issues are so much related, which is why I led off in talking about housing policy that is strategically focused around building up around the I-5 corridor to help ease some of the pressure on our community, as has been pointed out as well tonight. People are moving to our district because King County solution to housing has been Pierce and Kitsap counties, and people are having to commute long distances in order to go to the place where they work. We do need to grow, and we need to build housing in our neck of the woods, but we cannot carry the whole burden of the state's housing needs alone. We need 1 million more units in our state by 2045, and those units have to go somewhere. And then when our state is also doing things like rating the Public Works Trust account, which is supposed to go towards helping local governments fund public works projects and local infrastructure to support the growth that's going on, we are handicapping our ability to keep up with those changes in our communities. So again, sound budgetary policy that protects things like the Public Works Trust account, and then making other changes so that we make sure we're investing in the infrastructure on the front end of housing projects, being really strategic about whether those are going through updates, necessary updates to the GMA. But then also, I've been able to serve on the Transportation Committee, deliver projects for our district, and I look forward to continuing to do that in the future.
Thank you. And now, Natalie Bornfleth.
Yeah, the traffic always gets me right in Gig Harbor, where all of those on-ramps are super short. I wish those were addressed before the widening of the bridge. Honestly, I feel like it was a bigger problem. It's such a problem that it backs up to the bridge, to the Narrows almost every day. And you think, oh man, there's a really bad accident, which, it's 16, that happens. But almost always it's because of the on-ramps and people cutting over and then needing to cut back over for Purdy exit, which is overpopulated. The biggest problem we have, right, is that we need more housing, and we haven't been keeping up with infrastructure. And when you go and talk to the cities, it's because they have these unfunded state mandates. They need more infrastructure dollars to go along with the mandates for housing. Gig Harbor and Port Orchard have done a really good job of meeting that middle income need for housing. I would like to see Bremerton do a little bit more on expanding apartments and different types of housing, and also having the infrastructure dollars to go with it. And guess what? The best way to get more dollars into our state is, if we can learn anything from New York, it's to tax the wealthy and stop raising our sales tax and our gas tax. So I think that's the best way forward.
Thank you. Next question. Residents of the LD 26 have also asked about the detention and treatment of immigrants by ICE in the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma. What is your opinion about this, and what will you do as a Washington state legislator to help assure proper and fair treatment of those detainees? And we'll start with Adison Richards.
Yeah, so this is something that I care about a lot, having represented folks that are in immigrant communities and working hard and trying to keep themselves safe. I've represented people who experienced domestic violence and reported it, and then needed and were able to apply for things like a U visa, which is sort of a strategy for making sure that folks are reporting crimes and have a pathway, through our citizenship process as a result. And yeah, we've got to make sure that folks are being treated with dignity and respect and being afforded human rights, and very interested in how to make that happen and make sure that those are being enforced at the detention center. And we've voted on a lot of different policy in Olympia to help protect our immigrant communities, and that's something I'm going to continue to do as a representative, um, and also making sure that we're balancing that with public safety.
Thank you. And Natalie Bornfleth.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we didn't realize we were going to be spending so much money on is defending our state from federal government overreach. And one of those ways that our state has done a pretty good job is enforcing that ICE can't wear or police can't wear masks over their face. What's happening in America is un-American, frankly. Birthright citizenship is citizenship, and our immigrants and our immigrant families need protection. All of our ancestors were immigrants, and I think it's something that is, very important. And I feel like right now, citizens are doing the important work, which is notifying their neighbors when there's activity in the area. They are standing up for their neighbors. There's a gentleman from Bremerton who immigrated here when he was like 3 years old from Laos, and he was nearly sent back. A lot of people were involved in making sure that he was able to stay here. And this affects me as a teacher because my students have missed school fearing that that their kids wouldn't come home. So it's something that we need to fix. Another thing that I've been seeing and I would like to see more of is like government buildings that have the sign saying like, hey, ICE, you're not allowed to do any of your work here. This isn't a collection area for you. Go away.
Thank you. Thank you. And David Olson.
Would you mind repeating the question?
Whoops, sure. Residents of the LD26 have also asked about the detention and treatment of immigrants by ICE in the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma. What is your opinion about this, and what will you do as a Washington state legislator to help assure proper and fair treatment of those detainees?
Well, the center that you're talking about in the Tacoma Tie Flats has been a point of contention for quite some time. When I was a commercial banker in downtown Tacoma, I know that was a lot of people had issues with that center for multiple reasons, well before all the issues that we had going on. I would agree with Adison on this, that it's a public safety issue, and I think that we need to focus on treating the folks that are in this center with compassion and dignity. I believe in that a lot. I know that when I lived in California in the military, driving down I-5 corridor and looking at miles and miles and miles of strawberries and whatever the fields might be, you could see the immigrants out there taking care of all those fields and helping to support our ag community. Two of my kids work for agricultural companies in Central Washington, and I am quite certain that many of the employees in their companies, are immigrants, and they're here with the best intentions to take care of their families, often sending money back to their home country, wherever that might be. So I would agree with Adison. Number one, treat these people with dignity and the compassion, and making sure that we're keeping an eye out for the safety of our public. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next question, some of you have referred a little bit to this already, but the question is, what is your view of efforts such as the controversial millionaires tax to try to make the Washington state tax system fairer to lower and middle income residents while still covering the essential asks for schools, transportation, and environmental protections? And we will begin with Natalie.
Well, I'm the one who's mentioned it the most, so I'm definitely for it. I think it was a great first step, and it also it made things cheaper for my neighbors, right? So our families that maybe don't qualify for the level of poverty necessary to get their kids free lunch would now everybody gets free lunch. And so if you are in that cusp area where you don't qualify for free lunch and now your kid gets free lunch, that's money back in your pocket. That's a lot of grocery money back in your pocket. And so that was really helpful. But then also all of the essential items of hygiene items and over-the-counter medicines that would also be without sales tax was an amazing first step. Can we do better? Yes, we can. We need to look more into not just the estate tax for mansions, but also the capital gains tax. It only affects a small percentage of Washingtonians right now. And if it affected a small bit more, we would not have nearly the budget issues that we have. But somehow in Olympia, we keep giving certain corporations the take advantage of loopholes and get tax cuts.
Okay, thank you. And David Olson.
Thank you. I would have voted no on the millionaire's tax, primarily because in its current form, it doesn't have any guardrails to prevent future legislature sessions from lowering the limit. Right now it's got a good tagline, there's a millionaire's tax, but I think most people with common sense realize it just sets the stage for future income tax, and that's why we have the referendum that just got over 500,000 votes statewide to put it on the ballot in November to end it. Over the years, we've heard that marijuana would fund education. We heard that lottery money would fund education, and all of that never happened. It all went to the general fund. I think that the state needs to stop pushing unfunded mandates into cities, school districts, and counties without the funding to support it. You can say, like Addison mentioned earlier, we want growth, but we're not giving you the financial resources to improve the infrastructure or to build the infrastructure that goes along with the growth. I think that's wrong. Some of the millionaire's tax, it cuts sales tax to certain products in the stores. That directly impacts the city of Bremerton, city of Port Orchard, and Gig Harbor, because now they're not able to collect sales tax on some of those items. So there's an unwanted effect there. And whenever you do unfunded mandates, it always has an unintended consequence. Whether it's a school district, city, or county, they're going to be required to raise taxes on their local citizens to offset the cost.
Thank you. And now Adison Richards.
Well, there's no question that our tax code places a disproportionate burden on low and middle income people, right, through sales and property and B&O taxes, for example. And then what I hear from knocking on thousands of doors, having grown up here, is a concern that our state just continually adds taxes without reducing them on folks as well. And so tax relief was a central priority for me when it came to looking at this policy proposal. And I voted against it because we did not provide enough tax relief for low and middle income people in this bill. And we also didn't direct enough funding to tangible programs, tangible priorities like education and healthcare. So going back to look more relief for folks, yeah, the way that we went about the any reductions on diapers and other things that are good, it actually, yeah, it took away money from local governments. So that's less money for law enforcement. It's less money for county and local services. Somehow we increase all this revenue, but then decrease it for the local governments. And then we also defeated an amendment that would have lowered sales taxes by nearly a point. I voted for that amendment, and that would benefit everybody. We could have done a whole lot more on tax relief. And then on tangible funding priorities, right? We defeated amendments that would have specifically funded education, healthcare. We've got a huge bow wave coming from the federal government with HR1 that is looking at taking billions of dollars of healthcare funding away from our state in the next few years, and we didn't do anything to help address that problem. Thanks.
And believe it or not, this is our last question coming up. So here we go. In recent years, our election process has been attacked throughout the country. Do you believe our elections are fair and safe? If not, why not? And how would you change them? If so, what could you do to assure the public that our elections are safe? And we will begin with David Olson.
Yeah, thank you. It's certainly a contentious question or issue across the country right now. Years ago, our Secretary of State was Kim Wyman, and Kim Wyman was a friend of mine. And I used to talk to her about this issue quite a bit because I've been in elected office now for over 12 years. And it was one of the things that came up a few times over the years. And she told me that, in her opinion, that she had worked really hard to make Washington mail-in ballots one of the best in the country. There's always room for improvement. I think there's ways that we can improve our voting process, mail-in voting process. Perhaps I think we could put a unique ID, RFID, not necessarily a radio code, but a barcode that every one of us has a unique identifier on our ballot. And let's just hypothetically say there's a million voters in Washington State. You should only have 1 million ballots go out. If you end up getting 1,200,000 back, then you have a problem. But I think that Washington mail-in ballots right now in its current form is fair. I don't personally think that it's wrong, and I think that we could always do better. It's unfortunate when you, as we know, we found a couple boxes somewhere that had some ballots from a year or two ago, and those things are unfortunate because it sets the narrative that our state election process is rigged. But in its current form, knowing who's been done there before, I feel confident in our current mail-in ballot process.
Thank you. Adison Richards.
The only problem with voting in our state is that not enough people do it. We need to make sure that folks are getting out to vote and participating in our elections and our democracy because we each have a role in making our community the place that we want it to be. And making sure that our elected officials are doing what you want us to do. So, on that front, we need to keep the federal government out of our elections, and we took steps to do that as a state. I voted on several bills to help protect voting rights and access to the ballot in Olympia, and then on the other side, I was really grateful to see that the Supreme Court ruled against the Trump administration and allowing Mississippi right to have their ballots counted after they arrived right, if the ballots were postmarked by election day, now they will still be counted, and that is a really important part of our vote in or vote by mail process here in our state. Our state has done a great job with the vote by mail process. I always look forward to watching the live stream from the Kitsap County Auditor's Office on election night. Our election workers do a great job, and we need to make sure that they are safe and secure. And that we're also paying close attention to any other steps the federal government might be doing to try to limit people's access to the ballot. Because again, access to the ballot isn't the problem. It's people believing that their vote counts and making sure that folks are turning out to vote. And we're doing everything that we can to protect that right here in our state. And I'll keep doing that. Thank you.
Natalie Bornfleth.
Yeah. First and foremost, our votes are safe. The way that Washingtonians vote is safe. We can see this across the country with absentee ballots. As a military veteran, a lot of my voting was done absentee, and I always double checked, and my vote always counted. So there's never been an issue with mail-in ballots. There has been an issue with security. So down in Vancouver, a ballot drop box exploded, and it happened, not too far away from a school. I would hate to see things happen like that. I think that they need to be put in secure locations where that are already being surveilled. I don't want extra surveillance by any means. I also just want to thank the elections officials. I think they do a great job. And the volunteers as well. They've been doing a great job since before any of the 2020 fiascos. In America, funny enough, in my lifetime, I have not heard as much issues as since Trump has been elected. So I feel like the problem lies in his sphere and not in anyone else's. I also would think that gerrymandering across our country can be an issue towards our elections that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. And that is the end of the question portion. I'm sorry, we could have gone on. There are a lot of issues we could discuss, but now it's time for the closing statements, which will be 1 minute each and given in reverse order from the opening statements. So we will begin with Adison Richards. Your closing statement, please.
Well, thanks again for the opportunity to be here and for the opportunity to serve you. And I'm asking for your vote again and your trust to continue the work. I've been fighting for working families, been fighting to expand opportunity for more people in more places, regardless of who you are or where you grow up. And that's why I do this work and I'm passionate about it. And at the same time, right, what that has meant is voting against taxes I see harming working families at a time when affordability is the number one issue. And then also trying to find ways to improve our priorities and investments in our budget in a way that is and the way that we do policy so that we are really addressing the root causes of affordability in our region. And that's my number one priority heading into another term should I get there. And also focusing locally on investments. We've brought in millions of dollars to our district over the past 2 years, investing in food banks and in healthcare and in shelter and services to help get folks off the streets. And we got to keep that up and do more of that. And I look forward to continuing. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Natalie Bornfleth.
Yeah, we all agree that we need to work on affordability and take better care of our working families. And the difference between me and Adison and David is that I come from a working family. I'm still in a working family. I'm working class and I'm proud of it. And, you know, growing up, we needed services occasionally, raised by a single mom. And I work in a Title I school. And I work in a district that hasn't passed a bond since 1988. Things are not being done to help the working class in our district. And I think that having lived experience in the challenges that we're facing today has better prepared me for legislation in Olympia than not having those experiences. So I want to make sure that we help our labor and our healthcare.
Thank you. And David?
1 minute's not much time. I just appreciate you having me on today. I agree, affordability is really number one issue. I'm going to lean in on my 12 plus years on the Peninsula School Board as a public finance banker for a long time. I understand public finance. Our school district is doing extremely well. I oversee with the other board members a $180 million budget, and we have not had to lay off any employees. We've opened new schools, and we're setting standard statewide for how things should be. I want to take that same mindset down to Olympia. I want to stop increasing taxes until we have outside audits of all of our programs to make sure that we're spending the money efficiently and wisely. If we're not, let's stop it. And make sure that we're not wasting taxpayer dollars. I want to make sure that we fully fund public education, make sure that we're taking care of our public safety, making sure we have enough law enforcement officers on the job to take care of our local communities, and also make sure that we're giving transportation the attention that it needs. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks very much to the candidates for participating in this forum and to the audience for watching. Again, the candidates for Legislative District 26, Position 1 are in ballot order: David Olson, Natalie Bornfleth, and Adison Richards. 2 of these candidates will move on to the general election in November. Viewers can expect to receive ballots the week of July 20th to the 24th. Be sure to vote on or before August 4th. Before you do, also check out the League of Women Voters online voters guide at vote411.org and go to votewa.org to check your voter registration and to register if you are not yet registered. Both sites identify ballot issues and candidate information specific to your own voting precinct. We encourage everyone to use those as a resource in addition to the standard voters pamphlet. The voters pamphlet for the August 4th election is available online now if you want to read about candidates there before you receive your ballot. You will find our other candidate forums and a link to the recording of this one at our website, lwvtpc.org. You can also find this site by searching online for League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County. Thank you to the candidates, our timekeeper, Terry Baker, to Chloe Wilhelm, our Zoom moderator, and to you, our audience, for watching. Your vote is due by 8 p.m. on August 4th. We recommend voting as soon as you can once you receive your ballot and turning it into a ballot drop box near you. Most of all, remember to vote because your vote counts.